Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that has been on my mind for a while, and I actually got a question about it, so thank you so much for suggesting this. We're going to be talking about plot-driven story versus character-driven story. What is the difference? What should you be doing? Yeah, basically what is the best course of action? And while I was thinking about this topic, I wanted to talk more about one story that I personally find to be one of the best stories ever told in our lifetime, at least. One story that I honestly didn't expect to basically find interesting, and that is Attack on Titan. So if you've seen the anime, if you're watching it right now, I'm very excited, for the last part of the last season. Yay! We're almost there, almost to the end. Or if you've read the manga, if you haven't actually watched the anime or read the manga, I just want to give a warning that there will be major spoilers for the entire story. So in case you haven't seen it, maybe you should click out right now. But in case you just want to find out more about it, yeah, please stay, please do. But yeah, okay, so Attack on Titan and why I'm talking about this. I just want to give a very basic premise of what the story was about, and then I will start, I'll dive deeper into what plot and character-driven stories are, and what they mean and how they relate to Attack on Titan. So, okay, first things first. Let's put some structure to this. Plot-driven stories are the ones that basically rely on just the plot of a story. So basically all the external actions and events that happen in a particular story. So for example, I don't know, like a character goes to the shop and then suddenly there's an alien, for example, there, and then the alien, they have a fight, then the alien kidnaps the person, they go on their spaceship, they keep having fights, he has to save the world, blah, 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 all of these external things. That would be a plot-driven scenario. And then a character-driven scenario would be why that matters. The internal fight, if I can say so, that the character has, and why he has that particular fight. So, basically, I would say that you would need a really good balance between the two, because if it's, like, personally, I prefer character-driven stories. I think most people do. I mean, you can be a fan of, plot-driven action sequences where it's just action, but at the end of the day it gets tiresome. It gets how should I say, honestly, it's boring. I mean, yes, sure, you may find it interesting while you're reading it, but at the same time, a week from now, a month from now, it's not going to have any impact on you whatsoever. You will probably forget even the action sequences that happened. I think a very good example of this is a book I read relatively recently. It's by Matthew Reilly. So I started reading his books when I was much younger, and I found them to be really interesting. So he writes stories about ancient cultures, and I was reading this, what was it, like the 7 Deadly Wonders of the World, I think was the first book, if I'm not wrong. That was the title of it, and I found it really fascinating and really interesting. And I do remember that there was a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but there was character development in it. We got introduced to this new world that it was interesting. But as the books progressed, the last one I read, I think it was a couple of years ago, it was about the 4. I mean, yeah, basically the books go, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, I guess, 2, 1. So we have a couple of books more to be, to expect. But basically, I think it was something with 4. Basically, the main character had to undergo, like Hercules labors, I think it was. I'm sorry, I should have prepared better. I apologize for this. But yes, so the main character had to undergo these, super intense challenges that were happening underground, and there were all of these other players, and they were, you know, the stakes were life or death. But at the same time, nothing that much happened. I mean, apart from all of the intense action sequences, you know, why did it matter? I completely, to be honest, because I hadn't read any of the books in a while, so I kind of forgot about the main character, about the, you know, supporting characters. So for example, some of them even died. I mean, I didn't care that they died, because, I mean, this again a topic for another day and another video. But I mean, if you're writing a series, you need to make us care in every book. So for example, I mean, maybe I didn't read, as it happened in my case, maybe I didn't read a particular scene or a particular book, and I didn't know, or I forgot rather. So, you know, why should I care about the character? And that's where character-driven stories come in, because they make us care about the story itself. Because at the end of the day, if there is anything you should remember, is that the real story is your character's development. And all of these external events that you throw at them, so all of the plot, that is just a way to for you as a writer, as a creator, to basically, you know, push the character out of their comfort zone and make them, you know, basically take them one step further, so they can realize who they are internally, they can reinvent themselves, they can discover whatever it is that they're trying to discover. So yeah, this is the basic difference. And now when we speak about Attack on Titan, I think that honestly this is one of the more masterfully done plot and character driven stories I've seen in ever. I don't know. I mean, the basic premise is that you know, the whole of humanity, like this is what we were presented in the very beginning, like the whole of humanity has disappeared because all of a sudden, you know, these gigantic humanoid creatures appeared out of nowhere. They just popped up, and you know, they can regenerate themselves, you know, they're super hard to kill, and they eat humans. This is the only thing they eat. You know, they don't need to reproduce, they don't need food or water or anything like that. They just live to eat humans. That's the premise. So basically the whole of humanity was eaten, you know, and disappeared in a very short period of time. And then very few of the people who managed to escape, they created these walls and they hid themselves behind them. This is, yeah, basically this is the premise, and they cannot go outside because there are these, you know, man-eating creatures. So yeah, this is what we were presented with in the very beginning. However, in the very first episode, in the very, you know, first chapter even of the manga, we are presented with this horrific scene of, you know, 3 children. And mind you, this is, I don't know, it's very interesting because children are, it's not that they're easier to connect with, but somehow, you know, because they're more pure and they experience, their experiences are much more heightened than, for example, what a 30-year-old would experience. Somehow it's really easy to relate and probably even to imagine what it must be like. So for me, at least, personally, I find it very easily to get myself out of the story because, you know, plot twists, they're easy to see, especially if you've been focusing on storytelling for a while. Plot twists are very easy to see. You know, you just don't empathize, I guess, as much, or I don't know, at least for me it happens like that it's very easy to take myself out of the story. But with this, I mean, can you imagine just, you know, being this little tiny person and then just seeing this huge gigantic 50-meter Titan just peeking over this huge wall that you know, basically has been your whole world. I don't know, at least I personally found it very fascinating. And it was just very easy to put myself in the shoes of the character. And then, I mean, the very first episode, Eren's mother being eaten alive, like that, I don't know, just all of the emotions were so raw that you could feel, you know, because you did get a little bit of an introduction to the character. So you got this, you know, spunky kid who who just wants to do things his way, but then he's presented with these, you know, basically this horrible situation where he wants to join the army even though he's 10 years old at the time, and then his mother, who's terrified of that for obvious reasons, because it's extremely scary to be joining the army, and especially the section where he wants to join, the mortality rate I think at that time was about 90%, so there is a very good chance he would die. So of course she's terrified of that. So these are very, basic themes that I think a lot of people can connect to very easily. And then, yeah, it's just very, I would say from the get-go, it's very character driven, but at the same time, as the story progresses, there is a lot of plot, right? Especially in the anime, it would be the first season where, just this happens and then this happens, and there are all of these cliffhangers, and you have battles lasting for 8 episodes, or 8, yeah, I think for 8 episodes, the Battle of Trust, for example, but throughout all of these things, I don't know, I remember when I was watching it for the first time, I was thinking, okay, I can understand why this is so popular, because it's just there are cliffhangers after cliffhangers, and they just, you want to see what happens next. And, in my defense, well, not in my defense, but yeah, I basically watched the entire 3 seasons that were out at the time in the scope of 3 days. Thank God it was the weekend, and I had nothing better to do. Yeah, 2020 was a fantastic year for these sort of things. But yeah, it was super interesting, and I thought, it's interesting, yes, I'm clicking, on the next episode just because I want to find out what happens next, but at the same time, there is something missing. Of course, if you dive deeper, there's a lot of character development that happens throughout the entire story, but in the very beginning, because I just wanted, to go through it faster so I can see what happens in the end, I just didn't focus so much on the character development. But by the end, oh my God, by season 2, where you had so much, basically the uprising arc, where you had a lot of more politics, you had a coup happening, which I found to be really, really interesting, because I enjoy politics. I don't know about you, I know that a lot of people don't, but for me personally, it was super interesting to see how you would represent a coup in a storytelling setting, and make it interesting, because for me at least it was really interesting. And then by season 3, where you already, you knew kind of sort of the characters, you knew how they would react to certain things. It got to the point where it's just, it was plot twist after plot twist, but it wasn't just the plot twist. By the end, like, you could feel what each of the characters was feeling, and you could anticipate what they would do just because you knew them so well, and you knew all of the how should I say, all of the transformation that they went through. And if you look at the main character, Eren, by the end, like, I remember even watching the the theme song, the intro song for season 3, part 2, it was just, it was much more lyrical, and I don't know, especially because it was juxtapositioned, yes, that's a word, between Eren as a kid and Eren as an adult, a teenager at that time. And it was just, because as a kid he was much more impulsive, very, how should I say, he just wanted to do things, but he didn't have the strength, he didn't have the capacity at the time to do those things. And by the end of the 3rd season, he already, had grown, he was much more mature. So it was just very fascinating to see. And I remember watching this intro sequence and thinking, oh my God, I got, teary watching it, because I was just so fascinated by his determination and how much he had grown. Well, until let's face it, season 4, where everything got turned on its head. But even that, like, I remember, because I didn't see, I just watched the Attack on Marley. I just read it as a manga. That was fascinating. That was one of the best things I've ever read in my entire life. And you didn't have any animation, you didn't have any music, you didn't have anything to sort of elevate the experience, but it was still so good, just because of the way that the story was built. And it was this beautiful, and it is still this beautiful balance between plot driven and character driven story. So yeah, basically I don't know, I feel like I've been rambling on for a while, but yeah, in case you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you do. The last part is now out, and yeah, let me know in the comments if you prefer plot-driven stories or character-driven stories. I personally think that if you want to be aiming for anything, plot is amazing, but you should definitely have character in your story. You should have this character development, because at the end of the day, we're humans, that's what we care about, and we do want to care about the characters that we read on, we read about or we watch, it doesn't matter. We just want to relate to them, and we want to establish some rapport with them, if that makes sense. So that's why, by the way, that's why it's also important to give your character relatable traits. I mean, and give them maybe some quirks that make them unique in their own way, so you can basically relate to them easier. And yeah, so let me know in the comments, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye!